All right, hello everybody. I'm Nick Bonner for TreeStuff.com. We have Jeff Inman here for ISC. Jeff is the Kentucky tree climbing champion.
Correct.
Second in the world.
Correct.
You were first in the world at the TreeStuff or at the ArborFest head-to-head foot walking.
I pulled that off right there at the end.
So that was awesome. You actually did a rigging demo for us yesterday. You can find that one along with Mark Chisholm, Mark Bridge. I think Ryan might have done one. We had a bunch of them done this weekend. You can find all those on YouTube and on Facebook. A ton of different examples that we've done with our DIY Micro Rigging Lab. This is an exhibit that we'll have with us on the road this year. You can find us at TCIA, ArborFest events with this. You can come in with your friends or without and make cuts on a tree model and then replace that branch that you've cut. Try it a different way. We had people doing stormwork scenarios yesterday. It was really great.
It was.
You're actually going to do not a rigging demo though.
Correct.
You're going to talk about some climbing stuff.
Yes.
And the difference between DRT and SRT.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know the difference, it's huge. Jeff's going to tell you about it. I've been climbing SRT for a long time myself.
Yep.
And I'm excited. So take it away, Jeff.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so again, this has been a really nice feature here at ArborFest this weekend of being able to take these concepts of rigging practices that we kind of all theorize, and a lot of it exists on social media of how it's passed along. It's nice to be able to scale it down and kind of demonstrate some of these different scenarios. So what I'm going to talk about today, though, is exactly that of the climbing and double rope versus SRT, single rope climbing. And don't worry, it's not going to be an ISC show. As much as I believe in what we have and I use our products, there are a lot of options out there, so that's what I'm going to demonstrate. So if this is our tree, we've got limbs everywhere, we've got our high tie-in points, we're going to have to access all parts of it to do maybe weight reduction pruning or get some dead limbs out. The great thing that I find with tree work and tree climbing is that your options are only limited to kind of the tree and your own imagination. So we have countless options out there these days. So I'm going to kind of walk through some of these. So, you know, in the old days we would, and again, everything's going to be kind of scaled down a little bit. But so in the old days, we might walk up to the tree and be like, okay, I've got these low limbs and kind of work our way up. So we'll do a ALT, alternating lanyard type technique, where we climb our way up and then lanyard ourselves to the next limb and just kind of keep leapfrogging our way all the way up to the top of the tree until we get up there, and you know, more than likely we're going to natural crotch over a limb because and more than likely a smaller limb because it's less friction and it's easier for us to pull the rope and manage that slack, right? But it's still, you still got this, you know, loop, and this is what we refer to as double rope climbing, where you're self-belaying into the tree, where you pull on the end that has your prusik cord or the non-terminated end. And what that does is you pull that up, it draws the terminated end up, so you have a giant loop in the tree and you have that mechanical advantage. So as you pull, it pulls you, and then you tend the slack. Okay, so later we learned that we could tie a little rope to a little weight and throw that through the tree and get it over a branch much higher, right? Comes all the way to the ground, and then we might pull it, or we would have to pull it the other end up and isolate it. So just for ease of what we're trying to do here, we'll just say this. So isolation is when both lines are coming down side by side with no obstructions in the way. So then we would attach our rope to the throw ball, pull it up over the branch. Don't want to break our tree. Again, and we're trying to get it to over a branch that's sizable enough to support our body weight and the forces we're exerting in the tree. So, but then it's the same thing. We'll, you know, pull that loop till we get up closer. And then what we realize is that you know, we've got a lot of friction here, so it's difficult for us to move around the tree. So how can we put something up here at our anchor point to make it easier for us to move around the crown of the tree a little bit easier? So we would take a ring and ring friction saver, put it over a limb, and then run our rope through that. Right, so now we have less friction, or a more consistent friction at our hitch cord. So now we know when we pull, it's gonna create the same, we're gonna have the same level of resistance on our pull. Probably it's gonna be a lot easier because it's metal rings, so it's gonna be a little bit easier on our bodies. And then we can go around and access the tree however we need to access the tree. Now with doubled rope climbing, the rope is constantly moving, whether you're going up or whether you're coming down. And one of the drawbacks that we find with double rope climbing is how to manage friction. So as you move around the tree and say I want to access a limb over here, well, as my rope contacts the trunk, I'm going to have more friction built in, right? So not only is it going to be harder for me to pull or draw that rope with me as I go down to a limb, when I go to come back, it's going to be so much harder because I'm through rings back up here, but my first point of contact is over a limb. And climbing double rope for any amount of time, it's pretty much unavoidable. And you figure out different ways on how to manage that. And I'm not really going to get into advanced double rope techniques because I know TreeStuff's done other webinars that kind of get into that, and Taylor's talked a lot about that. So, so then Kevin Bingham, being the visionary that he is and just loving to tinker with stuff, was like, okay, and he's also done a webinar on this, but basically how can I anchor the tree or anchor the rope into the tree in a fixed way and allow me to basically deal with all the movement around in a tree and all the friction that's generated with passing over a limb and wrapping around a tree. How can I mitigate that to not only make my ascent easier, but also my movement through? So just again with double rope, if we weren't body thrusting, and I say that by pulling down on one end of the rope, it's drawing us up. The other main way of accessing the tree was through secured footlock. So again, the rope's hanging side by side, you tie a prusik on it, and then you footlock your way up. If you don't know what it is, YouTube it and check it out, because it's still, as we proved this weekend, a pretty efficient way to get up into the tree. But it's exhausting, right? Until you get pretty good at it, it's pretty exhausting to exert that amount of energy to just go straight up in the tree, set everything up, and then get to work. So what Kevin did was he figured out a way to have a rope statically anchored, or just a single leg of rope moving through in the tree, and allowing the climber to move up and down on a rope that is not moving. So what we'll do then is throw our rope, or our throw line again, through the tree. And then a major way, or the easiest way really to go about this initially, is to attach a rope to that throw line, pull it up through the tree, and then you're going to tie it off down at the base of the tree. Right, and you do that with running bowling with the Yosemite backup or alpine butterfly down low. I'm going to do an alpine butterfly because I tend to find that if you run alpines for climbing and bowlings for rigging, you never get them mixed up. Okay, so what we have here is a basal anchor. So now the rope is tied off, right? our tie-in per se is down low at the base of the tree. It's hard tied, fixed down here. The rope travels up into the crown and is suspended in limbs above. So now we have this rope that now is not going to move, and we have to figure out how to move up and down it. So what Kevin did, and here's that shameless ISC plug, we paired with him to make the rope wrench. And what the rope wrench does is it puts a small bend in the rope, and basically this acts as a ring friction saver and applies a consistent level of friction to the hitch. So that way, if this wasn't on here, if you tried, you could go up on it, but when you sit back down, it's going to lock up. So he figured out through a lot of trial and error, if you put a bend right there, it allows that hitch to function the way that it should. Now, since then, there have been quite a few other devices that have come out. Kevin's created the rope runner. Rock Exotica has the Unisender, now the Akimbo. There's several devices out. The Petzl has their zigzag and the chicane. There are more options now than ever as far as a hybrid SRT climbing device that allow you to move up and move down a rope that does not move. So if you're not familiar with SRT climbing, I highly encourage you to at least start in that direction, because it'll prolong your climbing career. Because, and I can't really put my full body weight on this because it'll break, but if I attach in here, if I use a foot ascender and a knee ascender, you can see how these ascenders are offset, right? I've got one down low, one up high, and now I can use these big muscles instead of these little muscles to propel me up into the crown of a tree, right? So as I clip into this and put my foot ascenders and knee ascender on, as I push down and basically walk up the rope, it's going to pull this device up into the tree with me. So what that allows you to do is now, instead of going all the way up to the top of the tree, setting your anchor point and then getting to work, you potentially now on your initial ascent can pop your ascenders off and then start moving out to different parts of the tree. Now this is, again, a basal anchor, so what you have to understand is that since your tie-in point is down low, all this is up here are redirects. They're your suspension points, and there's a potential for force multiplication. So your body weight, I'm 160 pounds, probably 175 with all my gear on. I'm doubling that load, that 175 pounds, in the crown of the tree. So I have to figure out a way to capture multiple unions and not have it be truly isolated, around one low limb, because that limb potentially could break. So if I can get the forces spread out, and again, just like in our rigging, try to build compression into the unions, right? Draw these limbs up and draw these unions into compression and make them stronger, then that's great and fine. And this is a very quick, easy, viable way to get a rope set in a tree, access it, and you can even switch back over to your double rope climbing system after you set up an anchor point or all manner of things. But it's the first time you do it, it'll prove itself in how efficient that this ascent method is, because you'll get up and you're just like, wow, I'm not tired at all. I can go about doing my work and enjoy this tree maybe a little bit more, because I'm now less tired, and I can probably get the tree done a little bit faster because of that. So what I struggle with the basal anchor in my day-to-day work practice is how exposed I feel, because again, my tie-in point's not up here. My tie-in point's now down low. So you think about, like, I'm not out rec climbing every day for a living. I'm doing production tree work. So as I cut limbs, gravity takes hold and it brings it from up high to down low. So you can imagine how having your tie-in point down low opens you up to a potential level of risk, along with having ground personnel moving around underneath. The chance of it being severed potentially or messed with is a little bit higher. than if you do a canopy anchor. So a canopy anchor is where you do the same thing with a throw line. You huck it through the tree just like you would in double rope and get it isolated around a limb so that both legs come down together all the way to the ground. And then you'll tie a cinching knot. So again, I stick to the rule of a alpine butterfly is for climbing and a running bowline is for rigging. That's how I do it. Others of you may have a different opinion, but that's fine. So I'll do my alpine butterfly. And send it up into the crown of the tree. So now it's choked off. It's got a hard anchor up in the tree. So what this does is now my basically 175 pounds with gear on, that's the amount of force basically that I'm putting here. Like, I'm not worried so much about force multiplication. Again, it depends on where you tie in and how it's going to load that limb. But now it's just a single rope statically anchored in the crown of the tree, putting less force typically on that one branch union, and it allows me now to have where I'm anchored at away from the ground personnel, away from branches falling down. It's up in the tree, and it's easier to kind of manage the safety of how I personally am anchored in the tree. So then it's the same thing. Whether it's a runner or it's a rope wrench, you tie that on, you climb up in the tree, you can get out to the end of the branch on your initial ascent and then keep rope walking your way up and then go over here. And I can wrap this, you know, as many times as I want to around the tree. And these hybrid devices, such as the rope wrench, will allow me to still have the same consistent level of friction as opposed to if I was running double rope and I did this, I wouldn't be able to move. I wouldn't be able to come down, I wouldn't be able to move up, and this is not practical. You're not going to wrap around the tree 6 times, but the point being that the rope stays static, it doesn't move, and we now as climbers are the ones that are managing how we go about this. Right, so as I pull that, it's just going to move the same way as it would in my ascent and my descent if I didn't have anything in the way. So that's kind of the basics of SRT climbing. It's really geared towards more of getting the big muscles doing all the work, so your little muscles can go about making the cuts and holding the chainsaw and managing the friction hitches. The other thing that's great about SRT climbing is that you can redirect. So you can take this rope that again doesn't move and you can pass it over another limb that now, instead of, if I just had this as my anchor point and I was trying to come here, right? I mean, that's a safe angle, right? From me as a climber to my anchor point. That's a safe angle, I'm not really worried about that. But say it's further out in the crown, I could redirect over another limb and now I'm coming straight down on top of it, right? So if you're straight down on top of your work positioning's improved, the temptation to one-hand a chainsaw is less because you're in a comfortable work position, you're right on top of it. And then once you've done all the work here, if you need to do work on the other side of the crown, because it's so easy to engage your legs now instead of your arms, you just climb your way back up, pop your way out of your redirect, and then move over to maybe this redirect. So you can then come down and work this part of the tree. It opens up options. You can anchor yourself and position yourself in a tree in a way that it was a bit more gear intensive to manage that friction under double rope. Trying to use pulleys and do V-rigs and M-rigs and all these advanced techniques, again, YouTube it, but it was more difficult. There's a lot more moving pieces, whereas this, you can just take a sling even throw it around a limb. Right, and you don't even need a branch necessarily to kind of hold the rope. You can just clip your rope into it, and now it's a redirect. Comes straight down. You just have to go back up and get it. So how I kind of really try to explain the difference in how you climb with doubled rope versus single rope climbing is double rope climbing is you kind of have to think of it in terms of a cone, right? Where you've got your anchor point up high, and you're constantly moving out and coming back, and you're moving out and you're coming back. Whereas SRT climbing, up in the top of the tree, there might be some moving out and passing through a redirect, but then I'm more in a column shape where I come straight down, and then I go straight back up, then I come over, and I go straight down and come straight back up. And it, again, just improves your work positioning, makes for better cuts in the tree, makes for a safer climber because you're more comfortable. Now the other thing with doing a choke style canopy anchor like this, right, essentially we good now? Audio's good. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Hope you enjoyed the view. So again, now we've got this choked anchor. We've got to get it down. So it's easy with a basal anchor because you just untie it down low and the whole thing comes out. Doesn't matter if you've got 10, 15 redirects, it just comes right out. Well, you can set it up in a couple different ways of putting a pulley up here, which I don't have. But if you put a pulley up here that draws it down. See if I can't just do it with a carabiner. And basically what a carabiner, which you could I guess use, but a pulley is a little bit better. As you were to pull down on this anchor, it's going to fair lead the rope from your redirect up into the alpine butterfly, so you're re-isolating the rope as you pull it back down. Depending on how many redirects you have, this can be kind of problematic. You know, all that work you did to get in the tree and not use your little arms, now you're having to use your little arms and maybe your like biggest ground guy's arms to like try to pull this out of the tree. So what I find myself doing more these days is incorporating a ring and ring friction saver. So this is a thimble climb. It could be like the secret weapon. ISC has our rings as well that you can put on a friction saver. Whatever it is, you can put this around the limb up high, pass your climbing line where it comes out of your climbing device through the ring and ring friction saver, and then tie an alpine butterfly to jam against the friction saver, right? And then you want to just kind of back that up to make sure that the alpine doesn't come out. But what this does is now you have all the benefits of being able to jump through redirects. Again, I could take 10, 15 redirects as much as I want. And when I go to pull the whole thing out, I've got very little friction on these rings. So as I pull that out, I'll just have to put a retrieval ball on the other end. It'll pass through the big ring, slam on the small ring, and it flips out. There's some potential kind of risks with that, but it allows you to have that same single load anchoring up on the branch with the ease of being able to pull everything out and not need that big ground guy, right? You know, not use those little arms, so we can have more energy to maybe go rec climb after work or go climb the next day. So to take that a step further, what we at my company have been really trying to push ourselves with is trying to climb with 2 work positioning ropes. Okay, and I know a lot of people hem and haw about this because it's, you know, it seems like it's that much more gear intensive, but what I've found with where I work, we have a lot of broad crown trees that requires a lot of up and down movement with catching redirects and stuff. So if I can install 2 ropes in the tree to allow me to work the tree more efficiently, why in the world would I not do that? So what I'll do, throw my rope up into the tree, I'll anchor it, but I'll send another rope up with it. Pull it up and have my friction saver attached with it up in the tree. So as I climb up, I lanyard in, and then I can set my friction saver around a meaty section of the tree. Again, lanyard it in, untie this. And what we've been doing is basically taking the concept of a basal anchor and bringing it up into the crown of a tree. So what we're deeming it as a canabase, right? A basal anchor in the canopy. So now I can, from my climbing system, right, as it passes out of my climbing system, I can throw it above me into other unions, right, and capture these branches and then feed my system or my rope into a friction saver below. I'm just going to do this for simplicity. So now the basic concept of a canabase is I'm taking these limbs that maybe I wouldn't have tied into before, like committed fully to just being on this one limb and a choked anchor. I'm taking these limbs and I'm building compression, right? Doing the same thing with rigging. I'm drawing these forces together, and I'm actually anchored to something a lot beefier than the 2 of these. So then that other rope that I sent up as a retrieval line, well, now it can get thrown around and canabased in a completely separate orientation. It get thrown into the friction saver. Again, we'll just, for simplicity, things you do on camera. So now I've got 2 ropes anchored onto one friction saver. Set up in a canabase way. So now if I am set up here and I want to come over and work this side, but I know I want to wind up on the other side of the tree, I can pre-direct or predetermine that I want to wind up over there. So throw my anchor points up high, pale my rope on that side, so when I climb around, you want to follow me? If I climb around and can get to this other system, I can clip into it, tension that, slack here, disconnect from that one, and now I'm off to the races. And I haven't even used my lanyard, right? Because I went from one climbing system to the next. Slacked one into it as I tensioned the other. So what that allows you to do is move through the tree in a more efficient way. And what it also allows you to do is say, right, because nobody's ever had this happen, where they get out to the end of a limb, I really want this redirect because it's going to make this work positioning right underneath me great, but it's this spindly limb and I'm not trying to lanyard into it and be fully committed to it so I can pop this off and throw it through. Well, if you've got this second system with you, just pulling with you everywhere you go, you can be in one system, slack the other, pass it, break the tree, pass it through the redirect, right, and slack as this one tensions up again, and two things happen now. So what you've effectively done is you've never been off rope, never even used my lanyard to go from one rope to the other through the redirect. I've improved my work positioning, but now I have this other rope that's kind of just hanging out relatively close to me. So in the event that, God forbid, something were to happen to me out here, I have an access line that's pretty close to me. Whereas traditionally before, when we would get up in a tree, set an access line, I might be 30, 40 feet away from my initial tie-in point, but my access line at my tie-in point, right, it's way back here, 30, 40 feet away. As I'm bringing these two ropes with me and kind of leapfrogging through redirects, that access line is a heck of a lot closer to me than it used to be, right? So now, if something happens, somebody can jump on that rope, get right up to me, because again, it's statically anchored back here, right? It's now ready to roll. So then I finish with my work, I come back down. We'll say I have a retrieval rope and both of these knots are clipped together. So as I pull the one retrieval leg, it's going to pull both ropes up and out of the tree. And again, because it's in a friction saver, a ring and ring friction saver, and it's suspended or canna-based up higher, I've got very little friction despite how many redirects I need to take through the tree on both ropes. It'll pull both out till they get down to the ground. I'll attach a throw line on the other side and then fish my friction saver back out and lower it to the ground. And that way I don't have any loose equipment. It's always attached, it's always safely descending in the tree, and I don't have a life support piece of equipment and a loud Vermeer mini skid making noise. I don't have a piece of life support equipment that's just bombing out of the tree that I'm hoping doesn't hit a piece of concrete or something. So this is a bit more advanced kind of technique as far as using like single line work positioning. Definitely a little bit of a learning curve with trying to incorporate two ropes into the tree as far as using both for work positioning. But I hope you see that there are ways that we can create a safer climbing experience now than we ever could have before with a moving rope system, right? Because now we can practically do this. So it seems like ArborFest is wrapping up. What I'm going to, feel free to contact me. I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram is Climbing Jeff. Reach out to TreeStuff, and if I can answer any questions for you, I'm happy to do that. But thank you for your time. Thank you, TreeStuff and Cheryl, for this awesome event and just setting up stuff like this so we as production arborists and climbing arborists can learn more from one another. Have a great day.